Welcome to the Freedom Legal Podcast, where you can come to liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We deliver the most up-to-date insights into the most effective and efficient lifestyle designs, business plans, marketing plans, automation software, and delegation strategies for solo practice lawyers and attorneys. Here is your host, experienced lawyer, writer, and entrepreneur, Jonathan Jaussi.
Welcome to the Freedom Legal Podcast. I'm Jonathan Jaussi. I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about defining success. What is success? I think it's such a critical topic. Originally, it was so simple that I almost overlooked it, but I realize this is something that is in and through everything we do as attorneys and as individuals, deciding what success is. Sometimes I think that we think it's an objective standard, like it's something out there that it's a number we have to hit, when in fact it's actually a subjective standard. It's something that we get to decide for ourselves, and we must decide for ourselves ahead of time. There are three major areas I want to cover today, which is who decides what success is, what are the areas we need to define our successes in, and measure. I remember talking with a friend of mine about his practice of law. This is a person who had been practicing for almost 40 years at the time, and I asked him if he had ever had any rough moments. What he said actually kind of surprised me and shocked me a little bit. He said there was a period of time when he started going over what he had achieved after 10 years of practicing law. And he started thinking about the fact that he was a solo practitioner in a little one-horse town in a small, inconspicuous state, doing collections. And not just doing collections, but collections that were so routine, he didn't even really talk with the person who was handing them over to him that often. And any of you who have done collections know what I'm talking about. It's pretty boring. There's a simplicity to it that's great. I mean, you took the stuff, you didn't pay for the stuff, all right, now come pay for the stuff. And the judge is going to pretty well see through any fluff or story that the person tries to tell why they don't have to pay. And so it's nice, but there's also kind of a stigma to it with attorneys as well. People who do collections maybe aren't the brightest attorneys, some people say. I don't believe that's true. I think it requires a lot of creativity. But it's not necessarily something that's seen as prestigious. Well, my friend was struggling with that, and he realized after a while of thinking that I'm just in this job where I'm doing this menial work, and I'm making maybe a 0.5% difference in the bottom line for a few major corporations. And as he thought about his state as an attorney, he got depressed. And he told me that he went home and he laid down in his bed for about 2 weeks. This affected him so profoundly, that he just couldn't function. He couldn't find any meaning or dignity in what he was doing because it was just so repetitive, so normal, so boring, and so obvious. Then one day, as my friend was struggling with this problem of just feeling meaningful, after about 2 weeks of really just languishing and hardly even being able to drag himself out of bed every day, not going into work, doing the bare minimum he needed to do to keep his practice running, a few phone calls here or there, and letting the secretary take the brunt of that, he had another thought that came to him. So, I live in a little one-horse town. What's wrong with that? I have a crummy little practice where I serve clients with boring cases and make a 0.5% difference in their bottom line. Again, the question, what's wrong with that? As he started considering these new questions, my friend told me that he was able actually to see the nobility in what he was doing. He was able to see that what he was doing was making a difference, a real difference, in the lives of the people that owned this company. Their profit margin was better. Their collections situation wasn't growing out of control, but it was being managed from day to day. And he realized that he was part of a team that was doing something great for real people. He was helping people keep their obligations. and find solutions to their debt problems. So he got back up and he went to work. And he put in another 30 years in the practice doing that exact same type of work. My friend is respected as one of the most successful people in the areas of collection in our state. And as I thought about his story, it made me really think about the question of who defines success? As attorneys, we're used to going in front of judges all the time. We go in front of the judge, or we're writing something that may someday go in front of a judge, or we're trying to prepare our clients so that they don't have to go in front of a judge, because that judge is ideally going to apply an objective standard. He's going to apply black letter law, or she's going to decide who was right and who was wrong on an objective basis. Well, I think we take that into our practice. I think we try and take that into our practice saying, okay, I need to do this, that, and the other that objectively makes me a success. When maybe that really doesn't serve us. What we need to do is look at our own goals, at our own desires for the kind of lifestyle we want to live, and use that as the deciding factor of what is success and what is not success. Because I can tell you, the universe will pile us up with opportunities. As lawyers, you all know this. We can get so busy so quickly, we don't know what to do with ourselves. But are we busy doing the work we want to do? So I want to talk about that today, 3 main areas. Who decides what success is? Well, I've already told you that I believe it's us. We get to decide what success is, and we get to set that criterion. It's so important that we actually sit down and write that out so that we can measure it. We get to decide what we like, what we don't like, the type of clients we want to work for, the type we really don't, how many hours we want to put in during the day, when we'll be on vacation, when we'll take phone calls from clients, when we won't. That's a really important decision. And I think the danger is if we don't make that decision consciously, life in the universe ends up making it for us. The exigencies of the moment end up insisting that we be on call for whatever it throws at us. And this is an opportunity where we can decide that we won't just bow to whatever is urgent and sacrifice what's most important for us. So that's the most important note. If you could take away anything from this podcast, I want you to know that you get to decide what's important. On the macro level, you get to decide what's important in your practice of law, in your career of law. The second area that's so important is for us to realize the areas where we need to set the definition of what success is and set boundaries around our activities. I think these major areas are the ones I hit on again and again in this podcast. These are our lifestyle, our relationships, and our practice. And I put those in that order for a reason, because I think we actually tend to put it backwards. We tend to put the practice first when in fact it really ought to be last. Of course you're going to work hard. Of course you're going to get out there and grind and put in the hours that need to be put in. No one's doubting that you, as a serious-minded practitioner, are going to go do that. Of course you are. But we need to remember our why. Why do we practice law? And I encourage you for a moment to think about that. What were your reasons for wanting to go to law school? What inspired you? Who inspired you? Did you have someone that you just respected, that you wanted to be like? Did you have something that you wanted to change in the world? Or something that you wanted to see happen in your own life? These are the things that you need to connect with when you think about lifestyle, that first prong, and write those things down. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live as a lawyer? And within reason, you begin building that lifestyle step by step. On this podcast, we're going to talk about a lot of specifics you can do to build what I call a lifestyle practice. I've seen so many other people doing this in other professions, and I really respect and honor what they're doing, and I tend to bring that into my own practice a lot. The second area that we need to set up the definition of success and to set boundaries around our work is our relationships. How much time do you want to spend with the people in your life that are important to you? What are the most important relationships outside of work? if we don't specifically plan to care for those relationships, the practice of law, which I've called a jealous mistress before, she will take over and she will take away all the time, and you will find those relationships sacrificing again and again and again in a way that's not fair to them and in a way that isn't really right for you. So look at those relationships. Decide what time you want to spend with them. And if your time is limited, maybe you're new to the practice of law, maybe you're working at a big firm where you have big hours, find ways, big hourly requirements, that you got to meet. Find ways in that spare time that you have to supercharge those relationships, to make sure those people are getting what they need from you and you are getting what you need from them. And I encourage you to really spend some time on this, because I think relationships is by far the most important area of our life. We need to connect professionally. We need to connect personally. So those relationships, make sure that you're very intentional as you begin to build your practice of law about how you want those relationships to work and what boundaries, what hard boundaries you will set to where you do not let work take from those relationships in a way that's not healthy. And you cause your work to actually serve and build those relationships. As you allow your mind to ponder on these, you're going to come up with ideas that may surprise you, things you hadn't thought of before. I, of course, encourage all of you to be commenting in our comments section below and share your ideas, how you've been able to be successful at these types of things. As you look at the ideas of other people that are commenting and ideas that they're sharing, your mind will be spurred on to share your own thoughts and to come up with your own ideas as to what will work and won't work for you. Then lastly, your practice is an area where you need to define success. How many hours do you want to work? How much money do you want to make this year, the next year, and then in 5 years? What kind of growth do you want to see? Of course, it's very easy to be really, really ambitious and set huge goals, but I encourage you to look carefully actually at what do you need. What's your monthly nut to crack, so to speak? How much money do you need to survive from month to month? And then ask the second question, how much money do you need to thrive from month to month? To be actively paying down debt and to be buying the things that you need to buy and to be growing your lifestyle in the way you need to grow it. This includes vacation and the quality of life elements that are important to you. So those are the three main areas that I see that we need to define success. If we decide for ourselves what success is, then we can begin to pursue it. And it's so important that we do this because we come into this practice with a lot of objective standards of what success is. There are a lot of movies, there are a lot of television shows, there's a lot of biases and stereotypes in our culture as to what an attorney is, right? We've all heard them, we all know. The attorney is a big, powerful, pain in the neck type person who is really addicted to money and wants power, and their relationships are crap. Well, we've heard all of that. The reality is the stereotype doesn't need to be you. You get to decide, you get to define, and that's the most powerful thing I think I can share with you. The people I've seen do that really do have an entirely different experience with their practice than those that refuse to do that. The last thing I want to share with you that is so important, this is the third major area after knowing that you get to decide what success is and then you consciously deciding and writing down a success plan. The third major area is measure, measure, measure. What we don't measure, we don't see. And it's really important because you look at it and you say, okay, well, I've decided what success is, but how do I know if I'm successful? Is it just merely hitting that goal? Well, as I thought about what success is and the subjective for me, what I've decided is that success is what I'm willing to celebrate. I saw this poster once. It's a really funny website, despair.com. It makes little spoofs on those trite little posters that we see in boardrooms. You know the posters I'm talking about, the one where you see a bunch of people rowing in a canoe and it says teamwork and it's got some little statement at the bottom that's kind of nauseatingly obvious. Well, this despair.com is really funny. It does these spoofs on them, and it actually said something funny once. It had this picture of a guy running in what looked to be like the Mojave Desert. I mean, he was just running on this really sunny, hot road that seemed to stretch forever. And then it said, in its satirical, sarcastic way, success. In the race to success, there is no finish line. So technically, it's kind of like a death march. And I laughed and laughed as I saw that. I thought, wow, isn't that just kind of the way we view success? We set this goalpost out in front of ourselves, this finish line, and as soon as we cross it and succeed, we immediately set a new goal. And that's good. It's good to be ambitious. But I think we're skipping a step. We do need to be ambitious, but the step of celebrating, of acknowledging, of rewarding yourself when you do something really awesome. So if you are able to hit financial goals this year or this month, if you were able to hit relationship and lifestyle and practice goals, what are you going to do for yourself? How are you going to celebrate? How are you going to show your mind that it mattered that you did that? As human beings, we have to be rewarded. What we celebrate grows. We get more of that. What we refuse to celebrate becomes drudgery. So in summary, there are three major areas when it comes down to defining success that are really important in the practice of law. One is realizing that you are the person that defines success for you, that it's a subjective standard supplied by you, to you, and measured by you. Second, that we need to define success actively and granularly. We really need to do that in the areas of our lifestyle, our relationships, and our practice. So that third, we can measure, so we can see what we're doing, and so we can see what the next steps are going to be. I encourage you to make a success plan this week. If you take anything from this podcast, take that piece. Do that for yourself. You deserve that. You deserve to be intentional about your practice, about how it impacts on your lifestyle, how it impacts on your relationships, and how it impacts on your practice or career. You can do that for yourself with not much effort at all. I think you could do that in about 10-15 minutes to start to get some clarity and help you make key decisions in the way you go forward from day to day. Thank you for watching the Freedom Legal Podcast. You can view and download the resources for this podcast on the podcast website. You can find the link in this description for this podcast below as well. Hope to see you next week, and be sure to subscribe and share this with other friends you think might become part of the conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Legal Podcast. Please visit the podcast website to submit your questions and feedback. Let us help you liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We'll see you next time.